For thought, these weeks go by so fast. We are heading into week 10. Can't believe it. The Chief is out there tying the knot. So big congrats to Will Priester. But we got a full house here today. TJ Zwarych jumping in and co-hosting. Busy Monday in sports. And we had a hell of a weekend in the NFL. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
We did have a hell of a weekend. I'm doing well, and you, my friend, had more of a hell of a weekend than the rest of us did, and so I'm looking forward to diving into that with you. Life's good. Lots of NFL, lots of NBA content. I'm just putting out stuff like crazy for RotoGrinders right now. I think from Saturday and Sunday, I had 7 articles, 7 shows, and now we're keeping it going here on Mondays. So life's good. A little sleepy, but life's good.
Yeah, I went through my fair share of Casamigos between 1 and 7:30 yesterday. We have Bob Volio in the house. Bob, you were on Food for Thought almost exactly a year ago. So welcome back. And you don't have facial hair this time. Actually, I don't think we had video last year. So if you know Bobby V, you see him streaming in the Madden community frequently. He says he plays competitive. I don't know how you do it, man, but thanks for jumping on. How are you after that Birds boys game yesterday?
Oh, I will tell you, I watched it in Atlantic City. I just got back from Atlantic City. It was a insane game. I was actually live streaming it for my people on Twitch while I was at the casino yesterday, and people were like, GG's, good game after the Cowboys' second penultimate possession. And I told everybody, I'm like, listen, Cowboys got 3 timeouts. The Eagles love to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and they almost did it yesterday. So we'll talk about that game in a little bit. But also, like TJ said, I want to talk about you because you had yourself a hell of a day yesterday. So
yeah, snuck into the King of the Beach. It was a hell of a sweat. But first of all, really cool to have you guys both on together because TJ, you and Agents of Fandom and Bobby with your brand you have going on. Just cool culture stuff and a big crossover between your audiences. Like, obviously many people that are into film and, and all that are also into DFS and gambling and sports, go figure. And Bobby, there's obviously a huge parallel between Madden nerds like yourself and me and, gamers and who obviously, play DFS. And I'm sure there's people popping in to both your DMs and Twitch streams asking about who they should play and things like that. So cool to kind of just like intertwine these communities and bringing everything together here for the show. And I just like tying that together. So I had played Alvin Kamara yesterday, and I'm gonna ask you about that, TJ. And I also did not play any Eagles. And I've never made the King of the Beach. I've never made an NFL Live Finals, so I'm like grateful and super happy. I've made a handful of NBA Live Finals. Came really close to the King of the Beach last year. Didn't chase it really as hard as I did today, but backtracking, I won my ticket to the second round in a showdown contest a couple of weeks ago when it was Bears and Commanders, the DJ Moore Nuke game. I had him at captain and Fields at the flex. So I crept ahead of everyone that had Fields at captain because Moore took basically almost all of his points. It was a crazy funnel. And then I faded Brian Robinson chalk. That was that day. And when Sam Howell dropped back to throw 35 straight attempts, I think, I had all the cheap pass catchers. So, like, I could not have hit a home run anymore. Super awesome slate. Fast forward to the qualifier yesterday, and I wasn't on crunch time, and thanks for filling in for me, TJ. And I needed every minute of that noon to 1 window. I had 1 entry to the King of the Beach, 30% advance, roughly 30%. You have to finish top 75 of 250, so there's a little more wiggle room between a normal GPP and like playing double up. So, weird kind of like mindset to have. You don't want to play too crazy with 1 entry. You want to play some optimal-ish kind of like the right plays and then kind of wherever you land with some of your other like 2 or 3 pieces. So I ended up playing Kamara. He came in at 46% in the King of the Beach qualifier. Massive number. I ended up playing Josh Jacobs, who was good chalk, and Anthony Pierce was just slobbering over him in press conferences this week, and I expected a ton of touches. And Jonathan Taylor, massive. Taylor and Jacobs, and I know you guys both had lineups and had massive first halves and did next to nothing in the second half. So I was buried while the Eagles game was going on. So my 3v3 debate pre-lock was Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Chris Olave, or Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and Kamara. So it was basically Eagles or Cowboys and which Saints piece. And after the first effing drive of the Saints game, TJ, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm on the wrong side of my 3v3 already. Chris Olave heavily involved. That was it. That was it for Chris Olave. And I'm going to get it. I'm going to like send the reins over to you about Alvin Kamara soon. So I was kind of like bumming, and I made a lot of good fades. I faded Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary chalks, not fun. Terry McLaurin came in at 34% in the qualifier. He was pretty quiet as well. And what was the other big fade I had? It was a pretty substantial one. I'll circle back to it. But the problem is that the guys that the cheap pieces that I had in the 1 o'clock games weren't doing anything. I went with Jamison Crowder, huge week, filling in for Curtis Samuel the previous week. Sam Howell throwing the ball a ton. He was pretty quiet as well. Kyle Pitts was okay. We'll get into the Falcons. And Kamara dudded out. So I knew going into that 4 o'clock window, I was buried. I was in, I think, 214th place. I was like bottoming out at while the Eagles game kicked off. I was absolutely buried. I needed 2 absolute ceiling nukes from Dak and CD, and I got them. So for basically 80% of the day, I was on the wrong side of that 3v3, AJ Brown first drive, 3 for like 36. I'm like, here we go. Jalen Hurts got a tush push, right? Here we go. It was pouring. Everything was going wrong. And then slowly but surely, no one could cover CeeDee Lamb. And I know that really boils your blood, Bob. You bring in Kevin Byard, it doesn't seem to matter, and things like that. But I will say this. I straddled that 30% line. I cashed no other GPPs yesterday. I bubbled on that like 18, 20%, snuck into King of the Beach, came in 64th. And I mean, it came down to the last drive. I know a lot of people rostered Josh Jacobs. He lost a 100-yard bonus on his last carry. That lost me 3 points. And if the Eagles got the ball back, I probably would not have won. So super cool. I snuck in, dodged a couple bullets. The best gift the Cowboys have ever given me, and the probably only one. But also big shout out to Squirrel Patrol. He snuck in and got the last spot, 75th place in King of the Beach. So super excited to get down there and hang out with Squirrel for a little. And, anytime you can get with Squirrel and just, talk to someone who's been so successful is awesome. So big shout out to John. And I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts on collectively yesterday? And I was kind of texting you guys throughout the day, and you probably thought I was dead because I thought I was dead. Like, objectively, I'm like, dead. TJ, I mean, after that Saints game, what were your thoughts on kind of the afternoon?
Here's the thing. I didn't think you were too dead because you messaged me in the morning about that 3v3 of like which side, and I'd have felt pretty terrible if it didn't go well because I definitely said the Dak and the CD side. And then on crunch time yesterday, I had a nice little day yesterday on for RotoGrinders content because on the NBA expert survey, I called a 30-point triple-double for LaMelo Ball when he had a 30-point triple-double. But then on crunch time, I called 200 yards receiving for CeeDee Lamb in this one, and he finished with 191. And so I did feel very good about CeeDee Lamb, and that was like the hottest of the takes, and so he definitely hit the ceiling of the hot take. And it took a lot to get there, but that made me feel a lot better about your chances. That was the only reason I cashed yesterday was CeeDee Lamb in cash games, and then in a few GPP teams as well with a little AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott stack. So not as big of a week as you, but I was riding that same train. That's what got me in above the min cash lines last week.
I mean, it's great to have a meaningful sweat once in a while. They're far and few in between sometimes, as every DFS is so competitive. The field is so sharp. There are just more and more fantastic tools on every platform. We RotoGrinders just unleashed Sim Labs, which kicks ass. Sim Labs is unbelievable. And I just want to say I toyed with it yesterday morning, and I was like, put in some basic parameters, like medium variant, whatever it was. Nothing crazy, nothing like kind of in between, like, average settings. And I said, oh, give me 100 lineups. It spit out the most CJ Stroud. So kudos to RotoGrinders and Sim Labs, like unbelievable.
I got to say, so I was utilizing them a lot in my research, and I tried to, I hand built a 20 entry max in the $3, and then I used the sim labs to go 150 max in the MME. And I did I dictated what quarterbacks I wanted to use and like a couple receivers to use in a stack for like 10 at a time, 15 at a time, and then I'd import them. Everything I adjusted and did myself did poorly, and everything that it spat out for me, and I was like, I don't know, it would have absolutely smashed.
We're kind of tying in a little elephant in the room segment in our DFS review here. So before I ask you about the birds, Bobby, CJ Stroud, suddenly the AFC South has 4 rising quarterbacks, and if they all marginally live up to the hype, me obviously a Titans fan, but gonna be a hell of a division. Fun games with 4 quarterbacks and CJ Stroud. Who cares about the Wonderlic tests and all that stuff? They got a winner in CJ Stroud, dude.
Yeah. The Wonderlic, it might be overrated and kind of ironic watching CJ Stroud bounce back after, the Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud game last week. And we'll talk about, maybe we won't talk about Bryce Young today because he was just god awful. His favorite receiver yesterday was Kenny Moore. But yeah, CJ Stroud just looks like a world beater right now, man. I mean, maybe we just underestimated it. We talked about Dameon Pierce. We talked about it yesterday morning while you were sweating through your lineup, debacles. But, no Dameon Pierce in the lineup yesterday for the Texans. Like maybe we just didn't think about just how much this team was going to pass the ball against a pass funnel Buccaneers defense, and pass the ball they did. CJ Stroud breaking the single game rookie passing yards record in a game, breaking Andrew Luck, another, AFC South quarterback, that record in the process. And yeah, CJ Stroud looks like the man right now. Fine complement of wide receivers right now. I took Nico Collins in one of my parlays to get 75 yards yesterday. I believe the only receiver that did not get 75 yards yesterday for that Texans team. Dalton Schultz, Brown, Tank Dell, everybody but Nico Collins. But yeah, CJ Stroud looks very, very good. And I got to say, by the way, we talk about these parallels between Madden and, real life NFL. Kudos to the coaching staff of the Texans yesterday, because something that may have gone under the radar for a lot of people, Saints, they go down, they march down the field, 75 yards, just that go ahead touchdown with like less than 10 seconds left. Instead of kicking the extra point, they go up. Now the line, NFL may have made the call here, right? I believe it was Saint or Texans, was it -3.5 or 2.5 yesterday? And they go up 39-37. Instead of kicking the extra point, you don't want to risk it getting blocked, it getting sent back the other way, going for 2 the other way, tied up 39-39. They go for what seems like a 2-point conversion. I'm watching the game live. I'm like, what are they doing? They just kneel the ball. Don't risk it. Don't do anything. Something that you don't see a lot of NFL coaches do, whether it be game management, time management, clock management, just genius on their part. So, the Texans look really good. AFC South is going to be in good hands for years to come. And, yeah, you let me know if we want to talk Eagles Cowboys yet, because I can talk for hours about it.
I will, but just to add to that, and I'll throw it to TJ. Kaimi Fairbairn was banged up, so Darren Abugangalwe. I haven't said his name in a year, so give me a break. Once I get a couple of weeks under my belt, I'll nail it. But he was kicking. So not only was that interesting, but there was some really sharp people and a couple people that had the cojones to play Noah Brown in the qualifier. He was 9%, and he's absolutely smashed. A guy I kind of considered at like 1255. Like I was just like cycling through my process. Noah Brown, TJ, everyone but Nico yesterday. Tank Dell is so damn good too. I mean, the Texans are fun.
Yeah.
Nico, the Nico not getting there was tough. I think I had Nico, Noah Brown, and Dalton Schultz in my one CJ Brown stack. And so subbing Tank Dell in for Nico Collins would have been very nice in that one. But yeah, they all were just nuts. I got overweight on Noah Brown, so I liked that happening quite a bit, even though I was underweight on Stroud, which made me quite sad. But the offense looked great. And honestly, more than anything else going forward, it kind of made me just want to make sure I'm always circling the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the schedule, and looking at, hey, even if they don't maybe have the most elite quarterback, most elite offense going next to them, it's a better matchup than we think. The overall numbers don't look great, but it's a pass funnel, unlike I think any others than maybe the Eagles, that it's very easy to put up passing yardage and fantasy points on.
Yeah, so we'll get to the look ahead, which is truly a first look for me typically. I open up the salary and like whatever sticks out, look at the games and the environments. But Will Levis has entered the chat for next week then, TJ. There's exactly what you described. Unproven quarterback, DeAndre Hopkins, and oh, look, it's Tampa Bay. So we will get there. Before I let Bob run with this Eagles situation in another NFC East clash, I do want to ask you about New Orleans because Alvin Kamara was mega chalk, and it's funny you brought up Madden, and I think there are, and you could probably vouch for this, there are probably people that aren't super into football, but kind of learn coverages by playing video games and figuring out what they are. So this was part of my theory behind, wow, Alvin Kamara's probably going to smash on Sunday, and he didn't, is because the Bears play the most cover 2 in the league. And he's kind of the same type of running back as Austin Eckler. Chicago's very good against the run, but you have one-on-one in the flats all day against cover 2. And we saw Eckler absolutely demolish Chicago, did nothing on the ground. I didn't expect Kamara to go in there and have 90 yards. He's averaging 3.5 yards a carry like the whole year, basically. But I expected him to take advantage of that. And I'm just an armchair guy who won one King of the Beach ticket. I'm not Dennis Allen, but I play a little Madden. I know what cover 2 is. I know what to freaking beat it. But why? More importantly, why on a day where Alvin Kamara was such a big of everyone's decision making, especially mine, because he was kind of in the heart of my, do I want to rather spend that salary on like AJ Brown kind of thing? Or do I want to like not pay for Kamara and get Jalen Hurts as like my 8K spend? Is there something I didn't read, or is there something you saw, or is this just a Dennis Allen shouldn't be a head coach thing that Alvin Kamara played a season low 49% of the snaps? I saw Jamal Williams have an entire, I think, second series, and I'm like, holy God, what did I miss? Is Kamara tweak his ankle already? I even texted you what happened to Kamara, and it was just the Saints being the Saints. So why season low in snaps for their arguably best player, TJ?
So I think it wasn't any big crazy thing. It wasn't anything that happened to him other than the fact that he had been getting workhorse level work for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks without Jamal Williams, without Kendra Miller, ever since he came back from injury. He's starting to get older, and he's also never been a guy that has gotten any more than like 70% of the snaps, 65% of the snaps. And so I think this was just regression to the mean. This was simply all the other running backs were finally healthy, and they didn't need Kamara to go absolutely crazy. They didn't have a huge lead, but they felt mostly in control of this one throughout the time that they were playing. And so I think it was a case of just Jamal Williams was finally fresh, healthy, ready. Kendra Miller, who they were wanting to get an extended look at all year long, was finally fresh, ready, not battled by injury anymore until later in the game because he left with an ankle injury. And so chances are we get even more Kamara back next week again. And then Taysom Hill just had a really, really good game. They couldn't stop Taysom. The Bears couldn't stop Taysom Hill every time he went out there. And so they just kept putting him out there. And so it was one of those things where for Kamara owners, it was bit of a worst case scenario with all of these other factors coming into fruition all at once. But I don't think it was any panic button worthy situation, especially with Kendra Miller already being back hurt again.
Yeah, a tough one. I mean, I'm not tilting. I had a good day, and I still think he should have been involved in the pass game a little more. I think he had 5 targets. I think 3 or 4 were before 2-minute drill before halftime.
Look, I'm not a big Dennis Allen fan, but the guy that I like less is Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator, where it's like, again, last game, I don't know if it was a good read on that because they did a few different things. And like Michael Thomas only had 1 target in the whole game, but he also was just doing a phenomenal job of blocking. And he was actually a very integral part of that offense that day. But Derek Carr has been one of the more accurate QBs in the league this year on one specific thing, on one specific route, and it is ones that break inwards. Slants, posts, ins, things that break inwards. There were 1 and 2 game sets of Michael Thomas back in 2018, etc., where he would run more slants in those 2 games than he has throughout the course of this entire season so far. They're just not doing that. You have a quarterback who's good at one thing, and it's throwing in slants and posts, and you have a receiver who's maybe the best at running slants in the history of the NFL with Olave and Shaheed, who are speed burner guys who can go over the top. The way they run their entire offense right now is just pathetic. Like they're not, I don't think they're some elite Super Bowl contending team. They are winning their division right now, but they should be dominating that division based on what they have. They have one of the league's best defenses, mediocre to maybe slightly below average quarterback, but with one of the best offensive surrounding casts around him in terms of playmakers. Their only real downside is their offensive line, which now that they're getting healthy isn't terrible again. So it's more Pete Carmichael than anything else for me.
Yeah, Bobby, just kind of piggybacking on some thoughts here about the Saints is two things. Derek Carr's red zone struggles have been well documented. So kind of agonizing for us as DFSers and bettors, but kind of a perfect marriage having a guy like Taysom Hill. And it seems like they're going to keep incorporating him more and more. Anytime he gets those carries and he's sub 5K, yeah, you got to consider him. Also, you and I, Bob, talked about Juwan Johnson, and he a game in the previous week, TJ, where the Saints didn't have to throw the ball too much. I think he ran the fourth most routes in the team, so it looked like he was kind of on the way back. And now he's like back, and he had the game, and he caught the red zone touchdown. He had 5 targets, and Jimmy Graham wasn't inactive, so that's a big thing. And I think Juwan Johnson is a thing moving forward here, Bobby. Like, you got any additional thoughts on the Saints?
No, I think everybody kind of touched on everything. TJ, like he was saying, I feel like the Saints were really just kind of playing with their foot a little bit with Chicago yesterday. I don't think they really took them too seriously. They were just kind of trying to get out of that game. You saw that Taysom Hill had more carries than Alvin Kamara. They were running a lot of Wildcat. Really just trying to pound the game away, just trying to chew some clock. And yeah, we were a little bit perturbed by the lack of Kamara in the second half, because I believe he had 4 catches for like 44 yards in the first half. Didn't see a single catch or target in the second half, and just completely disappeared. But that is kind of the way that things go sometimes in the Saints offense. They have a lot of options. It could be any given week. Sometimes it could be the Taysom Hill hat trick one week. It could be Alvin Kamara, one rushing, one receiving touchdown the next. It's hard to peg this team down sometimes. But the Saints, like TJ said, they probably should be running away with that division right now, because I think they're the best team in that division, and it's not really particularly close.
They seem complete. Tampa has its strengths, but we saw some of their weaknesses get seriously exploited. And before we go too far, all right, Birds and the Cowboys, and I'll give you a first crack here, Bobby. There are defenses, that are funnels, and defenses that shut down the run and make offensives one-dimensional. Is that the case with Philly, or are they just blatantly bad against the pass?
They are blatantly bad. I mean, they are a pass funnel defense 100%, but they are also just blatantly that bad against the pass. I don't think the Eagles have had a bad rushing defense since as long as I can remember. Maybe the Dream Team back with Vince Young in 2009, maybe before Fletcher Cox got into the league. The Eagles have always been a good run defense. They've always had Fletcher Cox there in the middle. Now we've got Jordan Davis. I mean, they just have a lot of big bodies there in the middle. But these last 2 years, with Jonathan Gannon last year and now Sean Desai at defensive coordinator for the Eagles, they have just implemented this stock send for pass rush over and over again. And it worked last year. It worked really well last year. Some games it worked better than others. This year, it has not worked as well. And you're seeing it because all of these quarterbacks have so much time in the pocket. The pass rush isn't getting home. And even if it does get home, the secondary might not be as good either. The secondary might have to be talked about going forward with this Eagles team. I mean, we have aging cornerbacks and Darius Slay. Bradbury looks like he may have also lost a step here. Kevin Byard, I don't know. It's still too early to see on Kevin Byard. He talked post-game saying that he hasn't lived up to his standards yet, so I respect that, and maybe he'll figure it out moving forward. Eli Ricks looked completely out of his element yesterday. They threw him in the slot a couple times against CeeDee Lamb, just absolutely got fried. But this stock send for pass rush that the Eagles love to send, it's just not the move. And as long as they continue to do it, which it seems like they're going to, the Eagles will be a team to circle on your DFS slates. And they are allowing currently, I believe, the second most passing yards in general, passing yards per game to the Chargers, I believe, in first on the season right now. And it's not going to change anytime soon. They've let up 4 300-yard passers this year. Kirk Cousins, Dak yesterday, Sam Howell, who they've allowed almost 700 yards to in 2 games, and Mac Jones in week 1. Mac Jones, who couldn't figure it out against Washington yesterday, who's also one of the worst pass defenses in the league. So this Eagles defense is a pass funnel 100%, and they just they just send this stock send for. There's no stunts. There's no creativity. It's literally as stock as a send for pass rush, as you can see in the NFL. And Dak had all time in the pocket yesterday. And anytime the Eagles would send another, if they would send a 5th, a 6th, anytime they blitzed, good things happened. Pressures were happening, incompletions were happening. You saw the Cowboys, realistically, as an Eagles fan, Luuch, you know that I'm not biased. I'm as level-headed as an Eagles fan as there is. The Eagles, for all intents and purposes, probably should have lost that game yesterday. The Cowboys had more than enough chances. They left a lot of points on the board, multiple missed fourth down on the goal line opportunities. I mean, they got tackled short, a knee down at the half-inch yard line on one. Dak steps out of bounds on a potential 2-point conversion where late in the game, they wouldn't have had to throw that Hail Mary. They could have kicked 3 and went to overtime. Just so many missed opportunities for the Cowboys. And when I tell you, I'm going to try to keep it PG here, but yeah, I'll just say parts of my body puckered like a Venus flytrap on that final possession of the game where CeeDee Lamb caught the ball at the 2-yard line and started running. An absolutely barn burner of a game in the final 5 minutes yesterday. And yeah, the Cowboys are still a very good team. It may very well come down to a Philly-Dallas NFC championship right now because they may be the best 2 teams in the NFC. I don't know what's going on with the Niners, but for now, the Eagles are 8-1, and I can breathe a sigh of relief going into the bye week because we got a little bit dinged up. Dallas Goedert got dinged up yesterday. Devontae Smith was a little bit gimpy toward the end of the game. Bradbury, I think I bet Jalen. The knee still doesn't look good either. Jalen, you kind of see like he doesn't really look like he wants to run. Like when he goes toward the sideline, he's just kind of just jogging where he could get a couple more yards. He just kind of just brazenly just jogs to the sideline. So yeah, the Eagles bye week could not come at a better time. They got an absolutely hell stretch of games coming up. We've got Dallas the second time. We've got the Niners, Chiefs, Bills. It's going to get tough. I'm buckled up.
And I think throughout that entire stretch, the Eagles are going to be my favorite team to target offenses, like passing games on in DFS for every single reason that Bobby just said, in addition to the fact that they're really good. And so that means one of 2 things. It can turn into a shootout, kind of like last game's was. And you don't have to worry about teams just taking their foot off the gas and then running the ball. But additionally, you find the games like the Sam Howell game, like the Patriots game, where, yeah, maybe the Eagles are just up like 28 points. And so the quarterback has no choice but to do anything other than pass. And you can get all these garbage time second half points. So you throw in the pass funnel, you throw in the lack of creativity on the rush, and just how successful teams have been. And then throw in the fact how successful that offense is too. It's really just the best case scenario for DFS every week.
They want to play that bend but don't break scenario, except they're breaking. They're breaking. There's blown coverages. They're just out schemed, some miscommunication. That's one thing Kevin Byard should bring is communication. I said this last week on the pod with Chief. He's not the same 25-year-old Kevin Byard. He's not, but he will be in the right place. Now, is he going to be able to execute? He truly makes the rest of the secondary better just on his communication. Bottom line is he has no pass breakups, no INTs so far this year, and he hasn't looked particularly break. Here's one you'll like. He came to Philly and got unsportsmanlike at a bad time. He had 2 in 7 years in Tennessee, by the way. 2. So I think everyone's a little bit frustrated on the defensive side of the ball because those are talented, proven winners. They're just aging a little. The scheme kind of sucks. So it seems like a pretty bad combination of things. But if they just mix it up a little, God forbid they get a little exotic in the playoffs, and you know what? That would be perfect because none of that's on film this year. Send a little more heat when it matters during the playoffs and mix it up, and they can get by. They have 1 loss. You know, they don't need to put that stuff on tape right now if they're in control of the NFC.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say as well. This could be a little bit of a case of chess, not checkers, and we don't need to show you anything other than our base looks throughout the whole season because of how good our team is.
Yeah.
The Eagles are you know, maybe there's this stigma with Philly that they're just, you know, you're the Eagles, we're the Eagles, but like don't get it twisted. You might not like the coordinators, you might not like the defensive, guys on the sideline there, but they're not stupid. So I think you're absolutely right. And you have seen teams do not a total 180 schematic switch, but they're in the regular season in a team that's really not fighting for their lives right now. They're kind of coast. I know the games have been close, but when you look at the overall record, they can coast a little bit, regroup, don't show a lot. I think it's a good point, TJ. But they keep getting it done. I want to also say this is really funny too, because I talked about this yesterday morning. Every time BetMGM's begging for action, they've been boosting prop plays. There's been total flops. They boosted AJ Brown's 100+ yards to plus 200 before lock yesterday. They're begging for action when they send push notifications. Like they want 50,000 people to bet $10, right? Yep. AJ Brown 68 yards. The touchdown kind of bailed him out for DFS purposes. We just talked about that Chicago-Washington showdown a month ago. Brian Robinson there. Everyone in the industry was on his rushing yards, and BetMGM sent a push out. Bet Brian Robinson rushing. I'm just saying it's kind of funny because like these sports books, they're not idiots either. Like they're gonna send stuff out where they want some action. So AJ Brown had 1,120 plus receiving yard games in a row. Wow, okay, they're gonna boost me to plus 200. Here's my lunch money, right? So I'm just saying it's a little ironic, right? I'm not like putting my tinfoil hat on about it, but the problem is with that matchup, and I dove in pretty hard, but both teams play a ton of man and a ton of single high coverage. Dak has been really good against single high coverage this year. His quarterback rating was over $120. It's probably even higher now entering yesterday's game. CeeDee Lamb was incredible against single high, but so was AJ Brown. So I was kind of hoping, they'd get him even a little bit. I mean, the first drive, 3 catches off the bat though. And then, the game kind of went away. And Dallas is a team you can run the ball on too. Like absolutely. So really close game. It's going to be a fun one down in Texas. For the rematch, that's for damn sure.
Yep.
But you mentioned targeting the Eagles, TJ. We could kind of go hand in hand with this. My next elephant in the room here is Buffalo and Cincinnati, and I didn't watch the entire game, but I went back and looked through it. Buffalo kind of freaks out and is one of the quicker teams to totally abandon the run. I mean, they were down 2 touchdowns at most in the first half. You don't just totally abandon the run. Down when you're the Buffalo Bills and have 2 touchdowns. I think they had 8 total running back carries in yesterday's game. Josh Allen had like 10 rushing attempts. Not sure how many of them were scrambles, but absolutely just said, screw the run. We're freaking out, panic, down 2 touchdowns. Guess we're just going to have to put it in Josh Allen's hands again. And you wonder why he's among the league leaders in interceptions and turnovers the last couple of years. It's because like James Cook was supposed to be a darling of the fantasy industry, and he's pretty good. I'm not saying give the guy 20 carries. He should get 12, 13 every week, no doubt about it, and even in like a little bit of a negative game script. So they totally turn one-dimensional. It sucks for the Bills. It's bad for real-life football, but it's really good against a team like Philadelphia in a couple of weeks when that Philly's going to stop the run, and Buffalo's, runs the ball twice in the first drive, and it's like, we're panicking already. Josh Allen's going to throw the ball 50 times, and maybe Gabe Davis will actually do something. Like, why is Gabe Davis not involved too? And that's on the coaches because he was barely even targeted. That's the guy that's supposed to open up this offense a little bit. None of us sitting right here have a problem with Stephon Diggs. None of us have a problem with Dalton Kincaid. But to give a rookie 10 targets and to just like knowingly just first read pepper Stephon Diggs every drop back, you get a little stale after a while. TJ, what were your thoughts on yesterday's game?
He got targeted once and the pass got intercepted, and it was like Allen never looked back to him again for the rest of the game. But I don't know the reason why. I'm not a rocket surgeon, but that's how Gabe Davis has been for the last 3 years. He has 3 touchdowns and 150 yards, or he has 1 catch for 16 yards, and that's it. And so that's always kind of been his MO. Couldn't tell you the reason why Josh Allen either seems to pepper him or ignore him, but it's definitely interesting in that matchup against the Eagles down the line. I might even just take some kind of stand and basically go, I'm going to build 150 Josh Allen teams, use the NFL Sim Labs on RotoGrinders, build 150 Josh Allen teams. So I get my Diggs Kincaid combo, Allen Diggs combo, Davis Diggs Kincaid, some with Deontay Hardy, some with Khalil Shakir, and just kind of mix and match, make sure I get all of my Bills combos.
Yeah. And in Cincinnati, Bob, a team that's not good at running the ball, but they continue to try. But it's a combination of Joe Burrow, maybe healthier. I don't know. Jamar Chase also could have had an even bigger game. Dropped the touchdown in the end zone. And then Burrow severely underthrew him on a bomb. Yeah. So I don't know. What's your bigger takeaway? Does it say less about the Bills or more about the Bengals?
I think it's more about the Bills. We've talked at length about the Bills before, and they're just a team that doesn't like to run the ball. Like you said, if they were a more balanced team, maybe even get them not to say that James Cook isn't a good running back, maybe get them a more premier, more of a household name at running back. and just throw him 10, 15 carries the game. But they just seem hell bent on passing the ball. On the reverse end of the spectrum, the Bengals last night, I had a parlay where I needed Joe Mixon to get 50 yards. He ended with like 37, I believe. The Bengals were up 2 possessions the entire fourth quarter and kept passing the ball. They didn't want to run the ball. They didn't want to clock the game out for some reason. They just kept passing. And Jamar Chase, if he has not already, do not be surprised if he winds up on the injury report at some point this week. He took a nasty fall on that Joe Burrow underthrow last night. Came down hard on the ribs. Even Chris Collinsworth said, "Don't call him in the morning. He's going to wake up. He's going to crawl out of bed in the morning." It looked rough. So, but no, the Bengals are hitting their stride. They look dangerous right now. The Bills, I've said this multiple times beginning of the season, man. If Aaron Rodgers had not gone down, I thought the Jets were going to run away with that division. And guess what? They're still within an arm's length of it right now. So that AFC East might come down to it. And who knows? Maybe Rodgers might try to push that recovery up a little bit. But the Bills, get them a running back, man. Get the run game going. Stop putting it all on Josh Allen, because then he just goes in the hero ball mode. He took a couple shots last night too. I know you said he didn't see the whole game, but yeah, he just took off and he didn't even try to slide. He was just taking shots. He was just going full Josh Allen, just schoolyard ball.
Switching gears, a lot of storylines in the Minnesota-Atlanta game. Wild finish, 31-28, Vikings. A couple injuries too. Jaron Hall went down. Looks like Cam Akers might be gone for the season too. Obviously, Drake London didn't play in that game. Josh Dobbs, I mean, just the guy comes in there, barely practiced with the team, was practicing his cadence with the offensive line on the sideline during the game.
Yeah.
I saw in a Twitter video, and I don't know, man. I mean, I think we have to start with the fantasy football talk. Does Arthur Smith just despise fantasy football? Does he hate everybody? He's got to be the worst coach for this. I mean, Bijan will never see 80% of the carries or looks under Arthur Smith. He played 61% of the snaps yesterday. Nothing against Tyler Algier. Fine football player, but he's just fine. And he's dominating the red zone touches. I mean, Jonnu Smith dominating usage as well when you have freaking Kyle Pitts out there. And Jonnu got the screen to the house. Fine football player, right? But in my humble opinion, Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts are the superior talents compared to their peers in this situation here. And he's just so smug in his press conferences. He just will not rationally answer these questions about why you're not putting your best players in positions to succeed. And whatever, man. I'm over it. We're going to keep chasing Kyle Pitts, and we're going to keep chasing Bijan until there's a new coaching regime. And honestly, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is until Arthur Smith's out of there, I think. TJ, I mean, well, you have any takeaways with this Atlanta team, or is it just kind of the same old story, regardless of personnel on the field?
Yeah, same old story. I don't even know if I don't think it's like a vendetta against fantasy football as much as it is a fetish of I need to be right and I need to prove everyone that I am so smart and my scheme works no matter who is in there. It doesn't matter what players fit in my scheme. My scheme is the best. I've always kind of thought very, ever since I started, I think this is the case for teaching. I think this is the case for coaching. I think this is the case for, parenting. I got a baby on the way, so I'm thinking about that stuff too. And I think a good coach can have this perfect, amazing system that you plug it in, maybe that works in college football because you get to choose your recruiting player who you recruit. And so you pick the players that fit your system, and it's this great system that will almost always work. But a great coach doesn't have a system. They adapt their system to their players. They adapt their system to who their best players are, and they utilize them to the best of their abilities. I think it's the same for teaching. You have to adjust your teaching styles to your class. If your kids aren't learning one way, you have to adjust it and teach them in another way. Same for parenting. It's not one size fits all with every kid because every kid has totally different needs. And I think that's what Arthur Smith has a bit of a case of, is my scheme works. So we're going to ground and pound. We're going to use these guys. He practices hard, and I like the way he protects the ball when he carries it. And so we're going to put him in on the goal line. Just a very old school, close-minded style of thinking.
Yeah, Bobby, you know what I think? I think Bijan Robinson should walk into that facility tomorrow, slam Arthur Smith's door wide open, look at him dead in the eye and say, I don't play in a system. I am the system. In the wise words of James Harden. That's what I think he should do. And then he'll play 20% of the snaps next week.
Yeah, probably not the best move. Yeah, Arthur Smith TJ kind of hit it right on the head. Just a very closed-minded way of thinking. And I don't really think there's much more to say about it. I mean, unless their prices come down in DFS, it's just not a place that I want to go. It's hard to peg down this team and figure out who's going to be the guy every week. But it seems like it's going to be their peers and not Pitts and Bijan as it should be.
And we can cover a couple more elephant in the room calls here before we start looking ahead. I'll stick with you there, Mr. Bobby V. I know you had Lamar Jackson yesterday. They put up 37 points and he was terrible. So talk about I don't even know what you call it, like the game script or the touchdown variance completely not going your way. And I was kind of interested in Lamar Jackson. The Seahawks play the most zone coverage in the league, and he was leading the league in completion percentage against zone this year. So he didn't play poorly. He just had 0 touchdown equity.
Yeah, no, like you said, Lamar just thrives against zone coverage. I believe 20% more completion percentage against zone than man coverage, and not a bad game. He just didn't even have to play the whole game. Completion percentage was fine. I think he went 21 for 26 yesterday, just shy of 200 yards. Didn't really have to play much. We did get the Odell Beckham birthday narrative touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Baltimore just snuck it in and just forced it to him. A little maybe squeaky wheel narrative as well. Not happy getting held catchless last week against Arizona. But yeah, no, this Ravens team, it was a little bit frustrating yesterday. I did roster Lamar, Mark Andrews, and Odell Beckham yesterday in DFS and in GPPs. And the floor was there. The floor was there for Lamar. He had 10 carries for 60 yards. I mean, just this Ravens team, they just get down the field. Lamar gets them down the field through the air, through the ground. And then, just Gus Edwards had like 4 carries for like 10 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first 2 possessions. And at that point, you just know it was going to be a wash. And that Ravens team looks really good right now. I'm curious what you guys, I've kind of bounced this question back to you guys. Where would you put the Ravens right now in the AFC? Because, I mean, they just throttled the Lions. They throttled the Seahawks. I didn't realize how great Lamar is against the NFC. I believe he's been now, after yesterday, 16-1 against the NFC in recent years. Or all time, but the Ravens team looks really good right now.
2 to 3. I think I'd have the Chiefs still above them, but that'd be about it.
I think they're the best team in the AFC right now.
Yeah.
I do. Multiple ways to win games. Lamar throws for less than 200. He's efficient. The ground game goes bonkers. Maybe we have something with Mitchell. I don't know if you guys have any Mitchell shares stashed anywhere. I have a season-long share of him stashed. I mean, what an epic second half for the kid. That division, if it wasn't for the Bengals' slow start, coming down the stretch here, like I don't know, when do they play? Do they play soon? Because 2 weeks, Thursday Night Football. Well, I got a banger of a Thursday Night Football game finally in 2 weeks. Bengals Ravens, the rematch. So that could maybe determine the division when it's all said and done. Still don't know what to think of the Browns. That defense on paper should travel every week. This gotta throw this week out with Clayton Tune in Arizona. You kind of knew that was coming to some degree. The previous couple of weeks, Cleveland's defense was getting lit up. Gardner Minshew stealing games, like leaky defense, which was really surprising to me lately. So I want to see, what the next couple of weeks hold for them. I don't know if this sounds ridiculous, but in Deshaun Watson's state of play, I don't know if they're better with him or PJ Walker right now. I don't know. And you got to feel for them without Nick Chubb, like the motor that gets them going. But, Ford and Kareem Hunt are a serviceable pair. They're not Nick Chubb. So I don't know. I think the Browns have some more problems. I think the Ravens have the least problems in that division. And I want to talk about one more game, and then, whatever we missed, we'll try to overlap in the look ahead. But going back to Germany, a thorough ass kicking in the first half yesterday on Sunday morning. Miami, almost came all the way back, but I just have this problem with Miami, and I don't want to say this. I guess I do. I think they're fake good. When they play a formidable, like gritty defense, it's the same story. all this speed and no spunk. I said this with Chief. I feel like they need more Dan Campbell, and the Lions need more Mike McDaniel. I feel like they're just lacking that tough, gritty. Like, they are capable of running the ball, but is a chain and Mostert can hold up between the tackles against a run defense like Philly, against like I don't know, Baltimore. I just, and maybe it's a dumb narrative feel, or I've seen it enough now that they just come up short against like good defenses. Like win me the 2017 game against the Ravens, or if they would have pulled that game out against the Eagles. Like, they had their moments, but they weren't good against Philly. I just have that problem with Miami, and here we are. And Kansas City decided to do the Mike Vrabel thing for whatever reason and not fly in until Thursday. Miami had, more time there, and they just didn't do it for me. Tua didn't play well, and I don't think that defense is good either. So I just worry a little more about Miami, and Dolphin fans probably want to, throw me through the wall, but I just think I think the hype train is just a tick out of control in Miami. I don't know. You guys on the other side of that fence there, or what are you thinking, TJ?
I think they got overrated early in the year. I don't think they're necessarily fake good, but I don't think they are as good. They're just not that good. You know what I mean? Like, they're not
tier, second tier kind of team.
Exactly. That defense isn't it. The defense is not that strong. And the offense, I think Mike McDaniel is an incredible, incredible coach and has them playing far above where they'd be with most coaches. And then they have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and all these wildly fast guys, so they can make these things happen. But the team as a whole, the team as an entire unit is not that strong. The offensive line was lights out early in the year, and then they've been dealing with some injuries. They weren't near the same caliber without Teron Armstead in there as with Teron Armstead in there. That defense, not strong, like we've mentioned. And then in the offensive game, like, if the first reads aren't there, if the team properly reads the motion, then all of a sudden that offense doesn't look that great. And if Tua doesn't have a ton of time and he has to make his second read trying to look over a gigantic defensive line. So I don't necessarily think it's that they're fake good. I just don't think they're necessarily that good yet. They have a top 15 quarterback with two amazing receivers, a below average defense kind of thing.
Yeah, Bob, thoughts on Miami, or maybe just both sides of that game? Kansas City didn't exactly wow everyone for 4 quarters either. Travis Kelce did nothing as well. And talk to me about Miami, but also I think Kansas City, we've seen some of the same problems with Kansas City. When Travis Kelce's not cooking, there's nothing. There's no consistency.
Well, I think you're starting to see the game plan that teams are going to start implementing down the stretch, and potentially in the playoffs against the Chiefs, and that's just take away Travis Kelce and make these other receivers get open. And it's seeming to be a problem for the Chiefs. They almost threw that game away yesterday. For the Dolphins, I have and I'm still not a believer in Tua. I got to be honest. It might be a mean thing to say. And it's not just the arm strength thing. I just don't think he's the guy. I mean, he's a serviceable quarterback. He's like TJ said, maybe top 15. I give him that, maybe. But I just don't think he's the guy. And I hate to harp on 1 or 2 plays because it's it's an every down NFL, and you got to look at the whole game. But if Tyreek Hill doesn't fumble before halftime when they're in scoring range, whether it be 6 or 3 points, and if Tua doesn't, I don't know if the ball just slipped. I don't know if it was slippery. Ball just slips out. He had a potential touchdown there on the potential game tying drive at the end of the game. Maybe it's a different conversation today, but I think we've seen enough of a sample now to think that, yeah, Miami's good. They might be in that second tier, but they're probably not in that upper echelon. They've now been 0-3 against teams with winning records this year, and I have no reason to believe that will change anytime soon. Although I do want to see this offense with A-Chain back in once he gets healthy.
My thing is, like, in Miami, on the devil's advocate here, every 8 or 9 throws, Tua throws a ball, and you're like, that's an elite, that's a top 3 throw. That's an elite throw. But then, he holds on to the ball too long, strip sack, or just doesn't make dumb decisions. I feel like we're seeing a second year kind of quarterback, but the problem is he's in his 4th year now.
Yep.
I feel like we're seeing too many things that were should be in the preliminary developmental stages of a quarterback, and we're still seeing some of that. And that's why I think he's a top half of the league quarterback. but he shows ceilings of incredible, like, elite stuff. It's just not all there, and I don't know how much better it can get with the cast and the play calling around him. Pretty damn good situation for anybody. So you take Tyreek away or you take the play calling away, and I think you might see a little more regression. But so they got the Raiders, and who knows, after the Raiders fired their whole staff, were favored by 1.5 and absolutely waxed the Giants, by the way. And Giants fans are in hell right now.
Yeah.
You give Daniel Jones, who threw what's the number? 15 touchdown passes last year, the bag, and finally comes back. And I like Daniel Jones. He talk about developing. Like, you gave a guy who was developing the bag. And he goes out there, and I hope for a speedy recovery, but his season's done, and we're already in November. And depending on how he heals up, will he be ready for, whatever opening week is next year? I'm not sure. Giants fans are in hell right now. And Saquon only got, a 1-year extension? It says he wants to be a Giant, but if I'm Saquon, I'm thinking, I'm out of here, man. I'm out of here. Tough for I can't think of anything positive to say about Giants football right now, and I feel really bad about that, guys. I can't think of anything.
And I don't think we need to. I think we can just give them a quick moment of silence and then move on to the next topic.
Just backtracking. Dolphins have the Jets twice in the next 5 weeks. Those are going to be prove-it defense. Like win one of those games. Like, show me you got that grit. Of course, sandwich in between, you got the Commanders and the Titans, who I can't figure out from week to week either. So the Jets, and then they have Dallas, a lot of blitz, a lot of man coverage, another kind of prove-it spot. And then at Baltimore on New Year's Eve, like, huge prove-it spot as well. So we're going to find out the identity of these Dolphins, if they have the grit to, win a handful of these games, and we'll see where they're at. But let's look ahead at this coming week in the NFL. I'm pulling up the player pricing for the first time and looking at the matchups here. The first one I'm looking at is Cleveland-Baltimore. Oh, going to be a divisional grinded out type of game, most likely. Detroit and the Chargers, first look, probably one of the DFS kind of environments people are going to be touting between Jahmyr Gibbs and St. Brown. The Chargers can't stop a nosebleed, and I'm not really sold on Detroit's defense either. And another 425 game. Ooh, Seattle and Washington is an interesting spot off the rip. Two secondaries that also can't stop a nosebleed. Sam Howell is on pace to break the single season dropback record, I believe, as of right now. And we know Seattle has that funnel too. They'll stop the run and make you try to beat them in the air. So my first look here, TJ, is those 2 4:00 games: Washington, Seattle, Detroit, Chargers. Seems like there's some right plays that you might need just a piece of. Like, don't play all the chalk, but I bet you in there somewhere is going to be an optimal piece or two.
A little bit Amon-Ra St. Brown in there. I don't mind that one bit. I found, like, this was the first week in a while that my second half of my afternoon team, didn't let me down. Like, 3 weeks in a row, I just crushed the mornings. Then I just needed a little bit of something from the afternoon, and it didn't happen. And then this week, my morning sucked, and then my afternoon teams came in and crushed it. So I'm going to be hoping to find that little balance here. And I think in the first half of games next week, I'll maybe focus on that Tennessee offense and passing game a little bit, get me on some DeAndre Hopkins, a little bit of Will Levis. And then in the afternoon, just get a little bit of something like a mini stack of some Austin Eckler, Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially if I'm playing a little cheap quarterback.
Yeah, I tell you what, Bob. Hopkins, Evans sounds like a nice little correlation. Hopkins, Godwin, Kate Otton's a thing. Tennessee has been a run funnel, really good front four, kind of like the Eagles. Similar scheme. They like to just send the basic four, but they've been getting gashed on the ground too lately too. I'm willing to say, unless Will Levis is like an alien, they're not going to rip off the next four and contend for a wild card. Hey, who knows? I mean, he went into Pittsburgh in his second career start and looked pretty good, all things considered. And Tennessee has multiple offensive line injuries as well. They have arguably the worst pass protection right now in the league. So that being said, I'd be shocked if Hopkins wasn't peppered with targets. And we just, CJ Stroud just had his way with that Tampa secondary as well. So that's a really interesting pair there. Thoughts collectively, like what catches your attention first on this kind of main slate?
There are 3 receivers, and by the way, I don't know what's the status on Treylon Burks. I know he got hospitalized during the.
I don't know, buddy, but it's Kyle
game.
Phillips season regardless. He was a showdown wonder for me last week, and unfortunately, I couldn't get there.
So there are 3 receivers just at a glance that stick out to me already in this upcoming slate, and you already mentioned 2 of them. DeAndre Hopkins against Tampa Bay, pass funnel, absolutely. Amon-Ra versus the Chargers, absolutely. And the one that I have targeted the most this year, and I will go right back to the well every time there is a semi-competent offense, which clearly the Patriots were not yesterday, are wide receiver ones versus the Commanders. Wide receivers versus the Commanders this year. These are some of the lines, by the way. I tweeted this out earlier last week. These are some of the lines wide receivers have had against the Commanders this season. Marvin Mims has had 2 for 113 and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs has 8 for 111. AJ Brown in 2 games has had 9 for 175 and 2 touchdowns. 8 and 130 for 2 touchdowns. DJ Moore, the DJ Moore hat trick game, 233 yards, a hat trick and touchdowns. Drake London, who this was with Ritter at quarterback, had 9 for $125. Jalen Hyatt had 2 for 75. Yeah, give me DK Metcalf this week against Washington. Those are the 3 receivers that I will probably be starting or flirting around in my lineups with this week. D-Hop, DK Metcalf, and Amon-Ra St. Brown.
The food for thought OGs are well aware of receivers against Commanders. So I'm glad Chief and I hit on that about a month and a half ago. But no Mahomes on the slate, right? Herbert looks like a pay up spot at quarterback. I'm interested to see how things kind of shake out at quarterback. I mean, Sam Howell's still very cheap. He'll garner more ownership than he typically does. I mean, maybe even Jared Goff against the Chargers. But one thing is clear about Detroit and football guy Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson is if they can run the ball, they will continue to run the ball regardless of matchup. I mean, I'm still kind of shocked. I shouldn't be, but I'm shocked Jahmyr Gibbs had 30 carries. Doesn't matter who it is back there. You can't keep giving Jahmyr Gibbs 30 carries, though. I mean, come on. But they were doing the same thing. They were cramming David Montgomery down everyone's throat, and he was averaging like 3.2 yards a carry, and they didn't care because they had the game script. So I'm a little hesitant to play Jared Goff just because I don't know what the touchdown equity really is. But quarterbacks, TJ, anything in particular that, Sam Howell, obviously kind of interesting for large field stuff.
The guy that sticks out to me the most is Joe Burrow, just because his price should not be what it is. Like, Joe Burrow is 6,800 on DraftKings, and he should be up near Justin Herbert. He's an elite quarterback. He was priced down low because of his injury. He had 1 bad game, and now DraftKings has been reluctant to price him back up. But you look at his scores over the past few games, 25, 27, 15, 27. He's playing like an elite quarterback, and he's priced in the mid-tier, and I don't think he should be. So Joe Burrow is probably going to be like the first place I'm looking to go from an optimal standpoint. And then if I need to go like, it really gets ugly as you go trying cheaper. So it'd be like, I think it's going to be Joe Burrow and Geno Smith as my top 2 quarterbacks this week.
What's CJ Stroud's ownership going to be, guys? 6,900 at Cincinnati with an encore like that. What are we going to see? I mean, no Mahomes on the slate. Who else is on a bye? No Josh Allen on the slate. Too big. No Tua on the slate. You're missing some integral options here that usually carry some ownership. Are we talking like 10% CJ Stroud for tournaments?
Probably about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Geno Smith has been brutal. If there's going to be a spot, like if he's not going to do it against Washington. You mentioned Metcalf, even Lockett. I mean, both those guys cheap. 6,800 for DK, 61 for Lockett. You have to have some Geno in your pool if you're multi-entering then. Like, even a little bit. He's been brutal for fantasy purposes. Bad. But I go back to was it Lions Panthers where some value opened up and everyone played. There was some substantial amount of ownership on some Lions pieces, even like Josh Reynolds or I can't remember exactly what it was, but Jared Goff went off and no one played him. He was like 3%. It's just kind of like, okay, if you're on the receivers, there has to be some element of potential correlation with the quarterback, right? So don't exclude Geno Smith if you're, about DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett this weekend, I think. Bob, you got any other quarterback thoughts?
FanDuel, Geno Smith, super cheap right now, 6,900, and Will Levis, 6,800. As opposed to DK, Burrow is priced up on FanDuel. He's at 8,200 right now. So yeah, paying it down right now. CJ Stroud is 7,700. Yeah, it looks like if you're going to pay down, Geno Smith and Will Levis looks like the move here.
Running back, I'm just looking here. Rachaad White, caught a lot of passes. There was some coach speak last week about getting him the ball in space. So I think Rachaad White is interesting. Kenneth Walker still 7K against that Commanders. Kind of depleted front now after all the moves there. Tony Pollard 7,300 against the Giants is screaming that's most likely going to be the chalk play at running back. I'm thinking Tony Pollard against the Giants. TJ, what are your thoughts? Is that an obvious like optimal type of play?
Yeah, I think so. He is currently has the league lead right now in most touches in a row without receiving a touchdown by a very, very, very wide margin. And I think he pretty easily breaks that this week against the Giants. The Giants are just terrible, in shambles. I think like a Pollard with Cowboys defense is probably like a pretty clear chalk style optimal mini stack for this slate.
Bob, one tournament look. I'm curious to see how San Francisco responds after the time off. They're banged up, and I said this to Chief last week. Like, this is who the Niners are, struggling, but who are they going to be in a month, right? You get Trent Williams back, you get Debo back, you add Chase Young, you get a little healthier. The bye week came at Brock Purdy. I'm sorry, obviously I'm not a doctor, and in TJ's words, I'm not a rocket surgeon, yes, which I don't know what is, but sounds important. But I don't know how Purdy was.
All I know is I'm not that.
That makes three of us, but Brock Purdy got the quick clear. I mean, concussions can really linger. Obviously, everyone heals differently, and again, not a rocket surgeon, but the bye was a necessity, and the defense very leaky. We saw Minnesota get to him. I'm kind of interested in some Jaguars to make Niners on the road. Got the bye week, but they're playing on these. Kind of want to see San Fran prove it that, like, for lack of a better term, they got their shit together. No one's really going to play these Jaguars, right? I mean, Etienne will carry a little bit of ownership by default. Is the field really going to be like, yeah, maybe the Niners do stink and everyone's like 15%? I don't think so. And Trevor Lawrence hasn't been great lately either. 6K only, though. Has that rushing upside, a little bit of legs. I want to see the Niners prove it. That would be like, if I'm making 30 lineups, I would want 5 or 6 Jaguar stacks, I think. Am I nuts, Bob, or is that kind of in play?
I don't think you're nuts. I think the Jags could be in play because you look at the Niners schedule. I mean, we don't know who this team is. Now again, they just got another good pass rusher. But we look at the Niners schedule here. I mean, they haven't played a lot of crazy good teams. I mean, they started off against the Steelers. They played the Rams, I believe, without Cooper Kupp. They played the Giants, the Cardinals, who are in shambles. They beat down on the Cowboys. That was probably the first prove it game. Then they played the Browns, and then they've lost. They lost 3 straight. They lost to the Browns, the Vikings, and the Bengals. And the Vikings and Bengals were kind of moving the ball on them now. And the Jaguars probably move the ball just as well as maybe any of those teams. Tell you what, I don't think you can go wrong with a couple shares of some Jaguars this week, but it'll be interesting to see. With a bye week under their belt, maybe San Fran bounces back. I think this is their bounce back week. I still do think they are one of the best teams in the NFL, let alone the NFC, but I got to see it, man, because 3 straight losses is not something that a Super Bowl contending team is supposed to do at any point of the season.
I think it makes a lot of sense additionally, too, because like you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence at 6K, that whole team is so damn cheap. So I can run a full stack. If I'm playing something in a large field, I can play a full stack. Lawrence, Kirk, Ridley, and Ingram, 3 pass catchers with my quarterback, run it back with Christian McCaffrey. And if I plug in a cheap defense for my last 3 positions, I have 5,400 remaining. That is more than enough to do something good with. And so not only can I do a full stack, but I can do a full stack with the expensive run back on the other team. And it's probably still going to be pretty low owned because it's San Francisco.
Even if you want to pay up and just play McCaffrey and don't want to like full stack, you have many cheap Jaguar little mini correlation options to run it back with. Calvin Ridley, people are kind of over him, and the production hasn't been there, but the volume's still there. Last 4 weeks, 8 targets, 4 targets, 10 targets, 5,600. I mean, I kind of like the idea of having McCaffrey, Ridley run backs, and Christian Kirk seems like people are saying, well, he's the alpha now. I still kind of think Ridley's ceiling is like a little bit higher than Kirk. It's getting the volume. McCaffrey and a Jaguars receiver is really interesting to me for this coming week. Anything else you guys want to, anything sticking out, looking ahead at this DFS pricing before we start closing out a little bit here?
I would love, and it's something that we're probably going to talk about here in a second, but man, it just sucks that Montgomery's coming back, man, because Gibbs against the Chargers, who are just a funnel for running back targets in the backfield, out of the backfield. But with Montgomery back, probably going to have to stay away until you get a feel for this backfield.
I mean, you could play Montgomery and people might be shy, but I mean, he had a month to get right. And Detroit was on a bye, right? So
yeah,
there's a chance. Here we go, football guy. Oh, you're healthy? 25 carries, David Montgomery. Right? People
Campbell did just have a quote from like a couple hours before we started recording saying that like obviously he's not going to get as crazy of touches as he's had in the last few games with David Montgomery expected back this week, but their goal is to give him more than he had been getting prior.
Wow. I know it's Monday and like we don't have a lot of stuff and we're kind of speculating on things. But one thing is New England ran a lot more 2 tight end stuff with how banged up they were. Hunter Henry and Gesicki each ran about 40 routes on 42 Mac Jones dropbacks. I think that's right.
Yeah, so, and then Hunter Henry, it was what, 36 or 39?
Yeah. So I mean, if you're looking for like a dart throw, I mean, those guys are running routes. If New England's receiver room is still in the state that it's going to be in, could do some more, 2 tight end Bill Belichick stuff. And you know what? Obviously they have problems, but you know what? Well, I had this thought the other day. I think they're this is a stupid organization. I think Tom Brady really bailed them out. But I think their biggest mistake is they had all that money and they were like, let's spend it all in one offseason. So we'll throw $40 million or whatever, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Yeah, let's pay for 2 tight ends, right? Let's give Devontae Parker another $30 million extension. And yeah, let's bring in used car part Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, they're like, we have the money, we have to spend it now. It's like a little kid going into Best Buy in the electronics section with $20 and he spends it all in 30 seconds. Like cool, you have the cap space. Doesn't mean you need to pay 2 tight ends a substantial amount of money. Jonnu Smith's still making money off that contract. At least Arthur Smith's using him because Bill Belichick didn't use him. Like, they just splurge. We're like, let's use it now. Like, God, like, forward think a little bit. And now I just don't know. Like, I know I said the Giants fans are in hell, but I don't know what kind of shape the Patriots are in right now.
I could tell you they're rostering and throwing out Jalen Reagor in 2023. So,
oh God, feel for your Pats fans. What a difference like 5 years makes, right? It's crazy. I guess we could do a little story time in GPP food of the day. I don't know if you have any good stories, TJ, but I got a GPP food thought for Bob while I give you a minute to think of it. Bob, Philly guy. Obviously, I would say most people are like, oh, cheesesteaks. Associate Philadelphia with cheesesteaks. So I don't know. Maybe that's accurate. I am about an hour outside of Philly. You grew up in Philly, South Philly. Rank me, like, give me your top 3 or 5 cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. I need to hear this, and I know this is going to be controversial because it always is. So I'm curious if any of our listeners are going to roast you about your cheesesteak biasness or not.
Okay, first and foremost, I will tell you, and if you're a tourist, if you're coming to visit Philly, you're more than welcome to. But the only time you go to Pat's or Geno's, which are the touristy spots, is when you are a tourist or you don't know what a good cheesesteak is. They are fine. They are average. They are acceptable. But if you're going to get a cheesesteak in Philadelphia, you don't go to Pat's or Geno's. Me personally, my favorite number 1 is got to be Jim's. Jim's on South Street. Yeah, Jim's on South Street is number one in my opinion. It's been a staple for a long time. I don't know if I could rank the rest, but I mean, I could just give you a top 5. I don't know if I could rank them, but Steve's is definitely one. Steve's is one. D'Alessandro's is another one.
Why are most of these places one syllable first names of a guy? Like Jim, Steve's, Pat's, Gino's. Like, I get it. They're probably the guys that opened it, but it's kind of funny. One syllable first name.
I'll throw you off for one then. I don't know if I put it in my top 5, but Ishkabibbles is 4 or 5 syllables.
Yeah.
But
is that a real place?
It is also on South Street. Ishkabibbles. No, I don't think they would make my top 5 though. But I mean, you have John's Roast Pork.
Is that Reading Terminal Market?
There, no, that's down like front. It's down like towards.
What's the roast pork place in Reading Terminal? That's baller too. Can't think of it.
Yeah, you can't go wrong anywhere in Reading Terminal. What I named 4 just now, 4, and then a 5th one.
Oregon Steaks, Ralph Bertram, what's up? Oregon
Shout out Ralph. Oregon Steaks is okay. Phil's on 24th and like Pashunk is pretty good too. I don't know. I think they fell off in recent years, but I would say Phil's on 24th Street. That would be TJ, my top 5. TJ,
you visited New York City recently. Was that your first time there?
No, that was about my 4th time there. I think it worked out really well because I got the Agents Phantom got approved for like 4 press passes for New York Comic Con, and then it was just my 30th birthday in June, and so my mom and I had been to New York together twice before, and she just loves New York, and so I managed to convince her to like, hey, what about a 30th birthday trip together? We'll go to New York again. And then so she went to some shows, and I went to Comic-Con throughout the weekend.
So what do you eat when you're there? What kind of food do you get in New York City?
So I exclusively, like when I'm there, I basically try and exclusively get like as much pizza as possible, and I try and do a lot of like bodega eating because I do just like, that's one of my favorite parts of New York, is that I love that I can just walk into a store and it has any drink I need, and then amazing looking sandwiches, amazing looking pizza, bakery with just a absolute smorgasbord of options. And so that's what I tried to do mostly. I try not to like go to many sit down places as often. It's just like stop by, pick something up, and then either eat it with some friends, eat it back at the hotel room while I'm watching something, something like that. So I didn't have as much time to do like some fine dining, really like scout out places while I was there. Just
you made the right call. That's what you do when you go to New York City. You did the right thing.
And so I was working so much while I was there. It was basically like wake up in the morning. I was still doing my RotoGrinders articles while I was there. So I was trying to do like all my content early in the morning, go do our interviews and stuff throughout the day at Comic-Con, and then have some time to explore. And then by the end of the day, I was just so damn hungry that it's like, all right, I need to find one of these places, fill up a bag of food, take it back to the hotel and eat while I do some more writing.
Bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, ketchup. That's all you need to know when you're in New York City.
That does sound good right now. I'm getting hungry right now. That made me realize that I have not eaten enough food yet today, Luuch.
Did I cut you off for a story time thought? I just knew you made that New York trip, and you did the right thing with pizza, because New York pizza is undefeated for sure.
Yeah, even like bad pizza in New York is still good, like really good pizza anywhere else. And so I absolutely love me some New York pizza. So that was the main thing I dove into. No, that was honestly, I still wasn't sure where I was going to go with it for my story time because like I'm just so hungry right now that I don't know where. So I'm happy that you gave me a direction to take it. So as long as I can talk about anything, as long as I get pushed in the right direction. So I'm happy that you gave me that little nudge.
Have we tried Wawa pizza yet?
I don't know if you've probably never even seen a Wawa. You're from Saskatoon.
Yeah.
Did I do that right?
Yeah.
So what do you like? Oh, I'm so good at this. So what's the staple, the delicacy of Saskatoon? Is there a food? Like, what do you eat up there? You're hungry, so like you have to. If you leave the house, where do you go? Like, what do you do?
So I mean, same as like almost the same as anywhere else. Like we have most of the same chains as the United States. Where there's a few that we don't have, but like our go-to fast food places are like. And like so, I talked about this last time I was on Food for Thought, actually, or maybe it was the first time, but A&W in Canada is so much better than A&W in the United States. I don't know what it is, but like the menu's different, the everything, and it's so much better. That's like our number one. It's a little bit more pricier, but that's like our number one nice fast food place here. There's the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, the Wendy's, all Five Guys, all these things, but like, you know how Five Guys is kind of like a step above most fast food places? It's like maybe not quite sit down, but it's better
like
than
middle
fast
class.
food.
It's like Chipotle Moe's. It's like in
Yeah.
between. Like
that's what A&W also is here.
Mhm.
So it's like A&W is kind of on like that Five
What makes
Guys
it
class
better?
here. I don't like the menu is different. So it's like the burgers are like they're spiced nicer. There's the flavoring is different. The condiments are different. It's just I don't know what it is, but it's they're really good here. And then there's this one place in Saskatoon that I love, and I believe this is local. So there was a restaurant called Congress. It was like a restaurant and bar here called Congress, and then they had these, and it was mostly a bar, but they just had these burgers that like everybody loved. And so the place that they got their burgers from started their own little burger joint in Saskatoon, and it's called Ace Burger. And so the two places I love, I'm a big burger guy. Burger and pizza are like my two favorite foods, and then the other one is that I always make at home, and it's crepes. I love breakfast.
Now you
food.
sound
crepes,
like an American.
Waffles.
You spend some time in New York, and it's burgers and pizza, and I love it. You fit right in.
Exactly, right? And then so like I love breakfast food too, so I always make crepes, pancakes, and waffles at home. So that's what I made yesterday was crepes. But when I go out, I love a nice burger. And so the two places I get them here in Saskatoon are Ace Burger, and it has I always like to, I don't like the whole idea of like a medium well or a medium burger. I always get them well done, but they do that there because they all like it's all like they do all their beef in the house. Yeah. I don't like for ground beef. For ground beef, I don't like the pink. For ground beef, I don't like the pink. For a steak, don't get me wrong. I'm getting medium.
We're gonna remove your American card now.
But for ground beef, I don't like the pink for ground beef. I was told that steak you can get it rare. Ground beef you don't do it. And so even when they cut their beef in house, it's just like a weird little ick stuck in the back of my head. But Ace Burger, they have it. They do a great fresh burger. The fries are amazing. They give you a nice lemonade with it. And the other place I go to that I love is Fuddruckers. Fuddruckers is alive and well in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I love that place.
Definitely not one syllable. For time purposes, we're gonna get out of here. Hell of a show. That was fun. Bobby, we could do a Wawa versus Sheets debate, but we would need an entire another episode. So next time you come back, and I'm pro Wawa, by the way, but
of course,
we will have that discussion at some point. Where can the people find you on Twitter, Bobby?
You guys can find me on Twitter. You guys can find me on Twitch. You guys can find me YouTube anywhere. Bobby V. It's mostly Bobby with 2 Y's _V, except for YouTube, just Bobby V. And yeah.
Appreciate it, buddy. TJ, drop your Twitter handle for the people.
TJ _Zwarych 5 ZWARYCH. It's tough to remember, but if you are watching us in video form, it does have that tag up here as well. And honestly, you can always find my stuff over at RotoGrinders, but I would just say give a follow to Agents of Fandom at Agents Fandom on Twitter and TikTok, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. We're always doing all kinds of crazy content, whether it like TV, movies, we diving into a little bit of sports, anime, video games, all of it. So make sure you tune in there. We cover a whole bunch of different niches, and so most people, pardon me, should be able to find theirs.
Well, guys, great show. My boys here, Bobby and TJ. I'm the Luuch. Congrats again to our guy, Chief Will Priester, who's doing wedding stuff. He will be back. We'll bring the Chief back. We promise you that. So for TJ and Bobby, I'm the Luuch. Good luck, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and have a good week.